Well friends, here we are, on the cusp of a new generation of Mario Kart. Mario Kart's not a series I've talked about much on this channel at length, but make no mistake, I love me some Mario Kart. Even though I mostly have to play it on my own due to my lack of friends, the fast-paced, chaotic action is something I'll simply never get tired of. Even if it sometimes makes me want to tear my hair out, like, wow, this series does not care sometimes. And seeing as there's a new Mario Kart on the horizon, I wanted to talk about it. But what to say? Or at least what's there to say that hasn't already been said? Well, while I could talk about the price of Mario Kart World and rake in the easy views from rabid Doom posters, I wanted to talk about something more inane and specific. That being the history of the Retro Grand Prix. This is a gameplay element of the Mario Kart series, formally introduced in Mario Kart DS. The Retro Grand Prix consists of, traditionally, 4 cups filled with various courses remade from previous Mario Karts. One of my favorite parts of a new Mario Kart is trying to predict or make wish lists about what courses will return. And over the years, the RGP and its related concepts have grown, changed, and evolved many times over the years. So come join me in my terrible, terrible kart combo as we drive down memory lane and learn as much as we can about the Mario Kart Retro Grand Prix. So this is certainly a way to start, eh? So before we talk about the Retro Grand Prix proper, we gotta make a quick stop here. Mario Kart Super Circuit holds the unique distinction of being the very first Mario Kart to bring back older tracks and remake them for a new Mario Kart. However, this approach differs in a few ways from the Retro Grand Prix, and is instead referred to as the Extra Cups. In Super Circuit, there are 4 cups to start with: Mushroom, Flower, Star, and the all-new Lightning Cup. If you get gold in all of those, you'll unlock the Special Cup, as you'd expect. However, if you then get gold in each cup again, while also getting 100 or more coins per cup, you'll unlock the corresponding Extra Cup. Extra Mushroom, Extra Flower, Extra Lightning, and so on and so forth. These cups grant you access to an additional 20 tracks, specifically the entire list of tracks from Super Mario Kart on the SNES. The likely reason no N64 course was included was the fact that there were 20 SNES tracks, thus perfectly mirroring the number of new Super Circuit tracks, and also because the SNES and GBA kart games both have very similar sprite-based designs and flat courses. It was probably relatively easy to remake them. Speaking of, let's look at how these tracks were remade. Fundamentally, they use the same principles the Retro Grand Prix would, especially early on. The layouts are wholly unchanged, following the exact same shapes as they did originally. The most obvious difference, then, is the graphics, with some tracks using backdrops from other Super Circuit courses. Mario Circuit 1 and 4 use the landscape of Peach Circuit, while Mario Circuit 2 and 3 use the backing of the GBA Mario Circuit. Similarly, Ghost Valley 1 and 2 use the setting of Boo Lake, while Valley 3 shares the setting with Broken Pier. Bowser Castle 1 and 2 share their backdrops with GBA Bowser Castle 1 and 2, and Castle 3 is also set in GBA Castle 1 for some reason, even though there is a GBA Castle 3. Donut Plains 1, 2, and 3 all use the backdrop of Riverside Park, making it look more like a jungle than plains. Choco Island 1 and 2 are similar, using the more overtly savanna setting of Sunset Wilds. Finally, Koopa Beach 1 and 2 recycle Shy Guy Beach, and Vanilla Lake 1 and 2 are set in the same snow cap as Snowland. Rainbow Road is special as its background is largely unique to it, being a heavily edited and modified version of GBA Rainbow Road, which is great if you hate Paper Mario references for some reason. While the layouts remain the same, you might notice they removed pretty much every hazard in every level. The pipes in Mario Circuit, the piranhas in Choco Mountain, the Monty Moles in Donut Plains, even the Star Thwomps from Rainbow Road are completely AWOL. Which is like, what the hell? What's even the point of SNES Rainbow Road without the damn Star Thwomps? Not sure why they'd ever think to do that, as it makes these, pretty boring tracks much more dull. It's bad enough that these things are short enough to warrant 5 laps in the Grand Prix. With no hazards, these things, while still a decent bonus, do feel a lot less engaging than the Super Circuit originals, which kinda makes the unlock criteria of getting gold in each cup, then getting gold again while also getting 100 coins instead of just letting us do it all at once, especially doubly tiring. Also, you need to do it for each engine class. Unlock them in 50cc but want to play them at 150? Tough tatoes. Go back and do it again. Still, this was where the trend began, and it did do a lot to give the game its extra replay value. Sure, 40 courses seems kinda quaint today, but back then it was a lot for one kid to play with, I'm sure. And it's neat seeing the kernel of an idea that would soon gestate into something much bigger than the sum of its parts.
Here we go!
Mario Kart DS was a very important game for the series. For one thing, it introduced, effectively, the modern Mario Kart gameplay system. This was the game that gave Nintendo the foundation that would be used for Wii, 7, and 8. And amongst its major additions was the reintroduction of Double the Cups. The newly labeled Nitro Grand Prix contains the usual Mushroom, Flower, Star, and Special Cups. And just below it is the new Retro Grand Prix, consisting of the Shell Cup, Banana Cup, Leaf Cup, and the now repurposed Lightning Cup. Each cup contains 4 tracks pulled from previous Mario Karts, remade and remastered for the newest installment. And DS even holds the very special distinction of being the most even-handed iteration of the ideas, with 4 courses from each of the 4 previous Mario Karts. Going over the courses included, the Shell Cup has Mario Circuit 1 from Super Mario Kart, Moo Moo Farm from Mario Kart 64, Peach Circuit from Mario Kart Super Circuit, and Luigi Circuit from Mario Kart Double Dash. The Banana Cup consists of Donut Plains 1 from SNES Kart, Frappe Snowland from 64, Bowser Castle 2 from Super Circuit, and Baby Park from Double Dash. The Leaf Cup contains Koopa Beach 2 from SNES Kart, Choco Mountain from 64, Luigi Circuit from Super Circuit, and Mushroom Bridge from Double Dash. Really wanted to give Luigi a lot of love here, I guess. Anyway, the Lightning Cup rounds things out with Choco Island 2 from SNES Kart, Banshee Boardwalk from 64, Sky Garden from Super Circuit, and Yoshi Circuit from Double Dash. Graphically, comparing these tracks to the extra cups from Super Circuit, a greater emphasis seems to be placed in making these tracks accurate to the original incarnations. The SNES and GBA courses are virtually identical with their original counterparts, complete with the flat tracks, relatively flat backgrounds, and this time all the SNES hazards present. The main difference is that the sprites for the walls and stuff have been made 3D models. The 64 tracks are also very accurate, with a few of the elements having been modernized to dump their older N64 designs in favor of the modern Mario art style, most notable in the Cow's Moo Moo Farm. The most notable changes are the GCN courses. Since the DS isn't as strong as the GameCube, these tracks have been noticeably downgraded. The layouts are still the same, but the textures are of course lower resolution, and the background elements have been pretty heavily chopped down. Luigi Circuit in particular is also much larger than it was originally, but the other 3 tracks don't seem any bigger, so that's just weird. Why'd they do that? Something about the Retro Grand Prix I don't think is acknowledged that much is the difficulty curve. Creating a set of 16 new courses for the Nitro GP is simple in terms of difficulty scaling. You got each cup with increasing difficulty, so it's simple to put the easier tracks first and the harder ones last. The Retro GP is slightly different in that they pull tracks from other Mario Karts and arrange them in a way to average out their difficulty and try and hammer out the difficulty curve so it's nice and smooth. Going over the courses again, the 4 Shell Cup courses were all pulled from their original's Mushroom Cups. In the Banana Cup, 2 were pulled from the Mushroom Cups, and the other 2 were from the Flower Cup. The Leaf Cup pulls 2 from Flower Cups, 1 from Special, and the GBA course is from the GBA Lightning Cup. Finally, the DS Lightning Cup also pulls its GBA course from the OG Lightning Cup, alongside 2 Star Cup tracks and a Special Cup course. Looking at it all together, this does seem to be largely the average I'd say you want to aim for. Pull the easy tracks early and the hard tracks later. But it is interesting that not a single Star Cup course is in the Leaf Cup, despite them both being the 3rd cups in the quartet. So there you have it, a marginally exhaustive breakdown of the original Retro Grand Prix. Admittedly, this appearance is still a bit quaint. Outside of modernizing the formula, DS didn't add any major gimmicks that needed to be retrofitted into the older tracks like the future games would see, but it was still a pretty awesome addition. Just like in Super Circuit, it doubled the total tracks that we could expect to see, and while not easy to make, They were almost certainly easier to make than coming up with 16 all-new courses. Not to mention the exhilarating prediction period, wondering and wishing for your favorite courses to return. Kinda like Smash Bros. Roster prediction videos. You know, I should make one of those too, actually. Better wait for the next game, though. Anyway, time to see how the Retro Grand Prix grew as time went on.
Mario Kart Wii!
In Mario Kart Wii, both the Nitro and Retro Grand Prix returned, equipped with 32 courses, 16 new and 16 old. Filling out these 16 old courses, the Shell Cup this time has Peach Beach from Double Dash, Yoshi Falls from Mario Kart DS, Ghost Valley 2 from SNES Kart, and Mario Raceway from 64. The Banana Cup has Sherbert Land from 64, Shy Guy Beach from Super Circuit, Delfino Square from DS, and Waluigi Stadium from Double Dash. The Leaf Cup contains Desert Hills from DS, Bowser Castle 3 from Super Circuit, DK's Jungle Parkway from 64, and Mario Circuit from Double Dash. Finally, the Lightning Cup comes with Mario Circuit 3 from SNES Kart, Peach Gardens from DS, DK Mountain from Double Dash, and Bowser's Castle from 64. The first thing to note is our new distribution. Last time there were 4 games to pull from, thus allowing them even and chronological representation. Seeing as there are now 5 games to pull from, and it is therefore impossible to evenly spread everything out like that, they evidently decided to give up and just sort of bring back whatever and put it wherever. In total, there's 2 courses each from SNES Kart and Super Circuit, and 4 each from 64, Double Dash, and DS. A very interesting stat that most assuredly does not spell doom and gloom for the poor 2D racers. Regarding the tracks themselves, they're similar to DS in that graphically an effort was made to make them look nearly identical to the original iterations. The GameCube tracks in particular look nigh identical, like actually I would not be surprised if they just pulled the courses out of the original game and imported them into Wii. They look one-to-one identical to me, it's kinda crazy. The DS and 64 courses also got a nice bit of polish with the stronger hardware, and the SNES and GBA courses still look like placemats in comparison. However, Wii was the first game to introduce the trick system, letting you perform stunts on ramps to get an extra speed boost. So, an effort was made to retrofit this new mechanic into the older courses. Many tracks, like DK Mountain or Yoshi Falls, now have ramps dotted about, allowing for tricks to be done to blast ahead. Others, like Mario Raceway, also have ramps, these being used for shortcuts if you have a mushroom. Still others have half-pipes, most notably in Waluigi Stadium, perfect to perform tricks while riding the also-new bikes. This is a trend the later games will follow as well, giving the old courses a modern finish so that they aren't quite so boring. For Cup difficulty dispersal, Shell Cup has 2 tracks each from Mushroom and Flower, Banana has 1 Mushroom, 1 Star, and 2 Flower tracks, Leaf has 2 Flower, 1 Star, and 1 Special course, and Lightning has 1 Flower, 2 Star, and 1 Special course. Like DS, this is a very even spread of difficulty, very much what I'd expect when balancing the Retro GP. Maybe replace SNES Mario Circuit and the Lightning Cup with one of the Special Cup courses to make it truly even. Give Mario Circuit 4 some love, why not? I should also probably make note of the Retro Battle courses. This was something in Mario Kart DS as well, but they weren't individually grouped like they are in Wii. Alongside 5 new arenas for Battle Mode, 5 others appear being remade from the previous games. Admittedly, I personally have never given a single damn about the battle modes in these games, so I'm not really going to be focusing on any sort of retro battle arenas. I just wanted to give them a little shout out here, as this is the only time to my knowledge that they're directly labeled and sectioned off as the retro arenas. Kinda weird that this is strictly a Wii invention, you know? It's like, I would think that one of the future games would do this, but no, it's... All in all, the Wii Retro Grand Prix is very much like what we saw on DS, another batch of 16 courses remade for the newest Mario Kart. The biggest benefit here is that Wii is a home console Mario Kart, and while DS had to make some sacrifices for a few of these courses, the Wii did not have that issue. It could let you drive through these beloved racetracks in a way that was bigger and better than they ever appeared, and despite all belief, it was only going to get bigger and better from here. Well, after 7 at least. Mario Kart 7, of course, brought back the same layout and format as DS and Wii. 32 tracks, 16 new, 16 old, spread across 8 cups for 2 sets of GPs. The Shell Cup this time possesses Luigi Raceway from 64, Bowser Castle 1 from Super Circuit, Mushroom Gorge from Mario Kart Wii, and Luigi's Mansion from DS. The Banana Cup contains Koopa Troopa Beach from 64, which is now just named Koopa Beach, which is very odd given that name was used for these SNES Koopa Beach tracks, Mario Circuit 2 from SNES Kart, Coconut Mall from Wii, and Waluigi Pinball from DS. The Leaf Cup has Calamari Desert from 64, DK Pass from DS, Daisy Cruiser from Double Dash, and Maple Treeway from Wii. Finally, the Lightning Cup has Koopa Cape from Wii, Dino Dino Jungle from Double Dash, Airship Fortress from DS, and Rainbow Road from SNES Kart. As you can see, the distribution this time is a lot more lopsided, I think is the nice way of putting it. DS and Wii got the preferential treatment this time around with 4 returning tracks each. 64 got 3, Double Dash and SNES Kart each got 2 a pop, and Super Circuit got a whopping 1 whole track to call its own, which is just... Man, I feel so sorry for the Super Circuit fans, man, they got force-fed dirt this time around. That said, this was the first game to bring back a Rainbow Road and use it to close out the Lightning Cup, mirroring how the Nitro Grand Prix is closed out with a Rainbow Road in the Special Cup. Graphically, from what I can tell, the 3DS seems to be about on par with the GameCube, perhaps a little bit stronger, but not as strong as the Wii. As such, all of the tracks from SNES to DS look about as good as you'd hope for, the perfect blend of authenticity and graphical updates. The Wii tracks got the shortest end of the stick, as they were just too much for the lughead to handle, I guess. They don't look bad, of course, but they are noticeably less detailed. Not massively so, probably not as much as the GameCube tracks appearing in DS, but the backgrounds in particular have been chopped down a lot. Like in Wii, the courses have been tweaked to make use of 7's new gimmicks, namely gliding and underwater racing. Generally speaking, gliding is used more, probably because it was much easier to wedge into some of these courses. Notably, any course that had a segment where you're launched from a cannon of some kind, such as Airship Fortress or Maple Treeway, now utilize the glider, a trend that would be carried over into Mario Kart 8. Underwater driving is found only in Koopa Beach, Daisy Cruiser, and Koopa Cape. The latter of which probably makes the most of it in my opinion, having its underwater tube halved to let the water in. Probably the most interesting application for the retro courses. Frankly, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of Mario Kart tracks that made particular use of water before Mario Kart 7. I can only assume that underwater driving is just that kind of gimmick that's a lot easier to make new content for, rather than trying to retrofit it into older content. The difficulty curve seen in this set is, in my opinion, the most even-handed of them all. The Shell Cup has 4 Mushroom Cup courses, Banana has 2 each for Mushroom and Flower, Leaf has 1 Mushroom, 1 Flower, and 2 Star, and the Lightning Cup has 2 Star and 2 Special Cup courses. Looking at this collectively, I find this is probably the most optimized difficulty curve of all the retro Grand Prix, leveling their collective difficulty for just the right amount of challenge at all time, which frankly I find very impressive. Also, all 3 of the 64 courses are from the Mushroom Cup of that game. Isn't that weird? That strikes me as very weird. Anyway, as you can see, this is the point where we kind of fall into a rhythm here. Bring back courses, update their graphics, hammer in the new gimmicks, and blazing fast profit, baby. As such, there really isn't that much to say about this one individually. So now, let's move to Mario Kart 8, where the pattern will most assuredly continue and not be changed in any way with substantial DLC of any kind.
Mario Kart 8!
Well, here we are in Mario Kart 8, the Mario Kart that managed to remain relevant for an entire decade. But it wasn't always this way. So let's start at the very beginning. When that game first released on Wii U in, good God, 2014, it was business as usual for the cups. 32 courses, 16 per GP, 4 cups, and so on and so on. The Shell Cup this time has Moo Moo Meadows from Wii, Mario Circuit from Super Circuit, Cheep Cheep Beach from DS, and Toad's Turnpike from 64. The Banana Cup contains Dry Desert from Double Dash, Donut Plains 3 from SNES Kart, Royal Raceway from 64, and DK Jungle from Mario Kart 7. The Leaf Cup brings back Wario Stadium from DS, Sherbert Land from Double Dash, Music Park from 7, and Yoshi Valley from 64. Finally, the Lightning Cup has Tick Tock Clock from DS, Piranha Plant Slide from 7, Grumble Volcano from Wii, and Rainbow Road from 64. So yeah, the representation here is wacky, to say the least. Mario Kart 64 was preferred this time around, it seems, as it got 4 returning courses, 1 for each cup. DS and 7 both saw 3 returning courses, Double Dash and Wii both got 2, and SNES Kart and Super Circuit are left with 1, which is just kinda sad, but understandable. As you can see, as time went on, they really seem to prefer the 3D Mario Karts to bring courses back from, rather than the 2D courses. Which is fair, the 2D courses can be fun, but they're also inherently a lot simpler and smaller compared to the others. It's also likely because of this that it's harder to wedge in the modern gimmicks. Like GBA Mario Circuit literally just slants a giant portion of the track to justify its anti-grab, which says to me that yeah, they had no clue what else to do with this one. Now obviously this would change as time went on, but it is interesting to look back on now, all things considered. Now, as far as graphics are concerned, this game is something of a turning point. The older games tried to make the courses look as authentic to the OGs as possible, just with cleaner textures or models. 8, however, opted to completely reinvent these courses, to the point where some are barely recognizable when compared to their original iterations. Clearly, Nintendo was feeling proud of their fancy new HD console and wanted to flaunt all their newly found MIGs and MEGs of memories. And since the Wii U is the strongest of them all, every track looks bigger and brighter than they ever could have dreamed of. As with Wii and 7, the tracks for 8 made an effort to mix in the modern gimmicks, including gliding, underwater racing, and now the all-new anti-gravity feature, which doesn't actually factor into that many of them. There are several tracks with no anti-grav at all, and the ones that do tend to keep it isolated to specific portions of the track, whether it be one small part or a couple of side paths. I can only assume they couldn't figure out how to organically add it in without changing the track's layouts too much. It's not like they could just take Sherbert Land and twist it into a Mario Circuit-esque Mobius loop or anything, you know? It's kind of a gimmick that I guess is easier to make for original courses rather than to retrofit it into pre-existent ones. Then there's the difficulty balance, where oh god. The Shell Cup is half mushroom, half flower, the Banana Cup is 1 mushroom, 1 star, and 2 special, the Leaf Cup is 1 flower, 1 star, and 2 special, and the Lightning Cup is 3 star and 1 special. This seems remarkably wonky in terms of smooth difficulty curving. Like, there's 2 special cup courses in the second Retro Cup, for Pete's sake. And it's not like they were running out of courses, they had the whole Mario Kart 7 to work with here. I can only assume they just really wanted to remake these tracks specifically and just kinda had to make do with what they had. Still though, it strikes me as odd that they seem to not give it much thought, especially after how well balanced things were last time. And that's the retro courses of Mario Kart 8. As you can see, and as I said at the start, it was business as usual when the game first launched. Another Mario Kart for the newest system, and a perfect showcase for all H of its Ds. But, of course, if the story ended there, I'd probably not be making this exhaustive and frankly at this point kind of repetitive video. So let's see what's next for the game. As we all know, Mario Kart 8 was the first game in the series to introduce DLC in the form of 3 content packs. And as fun as the Mercedes-Benz cross-promotion is, our interest is in the Zelda and Animal Crossing packs, which introduced 4 new cups: the Egg Cup, Triforce Cup, Crossing Cup, and Bell Cup. These cups mark a distinct turning point for the classic courses, as these were the first cups in the history of the series to mix together new and returning courses rather than being strictly one or the other. The Egg Cup brought back Yoshi Circuit from Double Dash, the Triforce Cup has Wario's Gold Mine from Wii and Rainbow Road from SNES Kart, the Crossing Cup brings back Baby Park from Double Dash and Cheese Land from Super Circuit, and finally the Bell Cup has Neo Bowser City from 7 and Ribbon Road from Super Circuit. This is notable for a few reasons. The biggest is that, as you may have picked up on if you've been keeping track, there seemed to have been a cardinal rule in place that all tracks can only return one time. They never said this was true to my knowledge, but given the total lack of overlap at this point in history, this does seem to have been the case at one point. This DLC is what broke that rule, with Yoshi Circuit, Baby Park, and SNES Rainbow Road all making their second return appearance as a retro course. This, of course, is great news for those that wanted to see some courses remade in HD, but thought they missed the boat since they had already returned in an earlier game. All of you Luigi Raceway fans out there, I see you. I'm still happy there's still hope for yous. Compared to the base game retro courses, these tracks share the spectacular graphical fidelity, looking bigger and better than ever. They also share the modern gimmick modification, though notably none of them use underwater driving. Yoshi Circuit and SNES Rainbow Road specifically also don't have any gimmicks at all, which is fair, as they are already perfect. For difficulty balance, there's not much to really discuss from here on out, honestly. Since these are DLC courses, they don't really have the shackles of needing to have a nice difficulty curving, since they're extra content. They're also mixed with new courses which could help with the making of which could help make the choices easier. I'd imagine at least, I don't know. For game representation, adding these tracks to the base game ones, Mario Kart 8 now has 4 tracks from 64, Double Dash, and 7, 3 tracks from Super Circuit, DS, and Wii, and 2 tracks from SNES Kart. It's interesting they chose to bring back 2 Super Circuit tracks of all things, rather than going straight for the Wii and 3DS courses. I can only assume it's because Cheese Land and Ribbon Road are some of the more unique themed tracks in the series, and I imagine a lot of people playing 8 haven't played Super Circuit before. They also brought back another Rainbow Road, the one that returned in the last game no less, which is certainly interesting. Granted, it's probably the easiest one to remake. Also, Baby Park is back and somehow more chaotic than it's ever been, and that's like, oh hell yeah. Overall, the DLC's retro courses are only something of a footnote right now. We got 7 more classic tracks. They're about what you would expect from a gameplay standpoint, with some delightful little surprise picks. But little did we know this DLC would have a cascading effect that changes the course of retro classic courses for centuries to come. Not that anyone cares. When the Switch was first revealed, Nintendo would tease us with a new Mario Kart, which we later learned was Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, a delightful port of the original with all the Wii U DLC built in. There were even some new add-ons, like a revamped battle mode, and some new characters. For the longest time, there was really nothing to say regarding the courses, though. They all came back for Mario Kart 8 in the same capacity, and Nintendo was busy with their new mobile game, Mario Kart Tour, so it seemed that DLC was unlikely. And then they announced the DLC that doubled the course total to give us almost 100 tracks. Because of course those maniacs would do something like that. So yeah, in 2022, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe saw the release of the Booster Course Pass, a DLC pass containing 6 waves of DLC cups. Each wave had 2 new cups with 8 courses each, totaling an additional 48 courses in all. The most notable thing here is that all courses featured in the pass also appear in Mario Kart Tour, recycling the graphical style and some various layout changes that we'll discuss later. Most notably, they brought in nearly every course that was original to Tour, which is great as it effectively helps immortalize the Tour content for when the app one day dies. That said, before we go over which ones returned, let's talk about prefixes. So as you can see, the retro courses all have a prefix before their name to identify what game they came from. The Tour tracks in the Booster Course Pass are the same, with 6 exceptions: Ninja Hideaway, Sky High Sundae, Merry Mountain, Yoshi's Island, Squeaky Clean Sprint, and Piranha Plant Cove. Of those, Ninja Hideaway, Merry Mountain, and Piranha Plant Cove all were in Tour before 8 Deluxe, so I'm not sure why they're missing the prefix. Maybe they were created with the intent of being in both games, and so internally, technically, are new courses for both? The other 3 courses did all technically debut in 8 Deluxe before appearing in Tour, but their data in Tour also lists them as new tracks for Tour. So I guess these 6 are just kind of new courses and retro courses simultaneously. That's the price you gotta pay for being the first Mario Kart to have retro courses from a game that came out after you, I guess. So, I guess not really retro courses then. Maybe like postmodern courses? I don't know. Anyway, time for the big breakdown, and oh lord, here we go. The Golden Dash Cup has Paris Promenade from Tour, Toad Circuit from 7, Choco Mountain from 64, and Coconut Mall from Wii. The Lucky Cat Cup has Tokyo Blur from Tour, Shroom Ridge from DS, Sky Garden from Super Circuit, and Ninja Hideaway from Tour. The Turnip Cup has New York Minute from Tour, Mario Circuit 3 from SNES Kart, Calamari Desert from 64, and Waluigi Pinball from DS. The Propeller Cup has Sydney Sprint from Tour, Snowland from Super Circuit, Mushroom Gorge from Wii, and Sky High Sundae from Tour. The Rock Cup has London Loop from Tour, Boo Lake from Super Circuit, Rock Mountain from 7, and Maple Treeway from Wii. The Moon Cup has Berlin Byways from Tour, Peach Gardens from DS, Merry Mountain from Tour, and Rainbow Road from 7. The Fruit Cup has Amsterdam Drift from Tour, Riverside Park from Super Circuit, DK Summit from Wii, and Yoshi's Island from Tour. The Boomerang Cup has Bangkok Rush from Tour, Mario Circuit from DS, Waluigi Stadium from Double Dash, and Singapore Speedway from Tour. The Feather Cup has Athens Dash from Tour, Daisy Cruiser from Double Dash, Moonview Highway from Wii, and Squeaky Clean Sprint from Tour. The Cherry Cup has Los Angeles Laps from Tour, Sunset Wilds from Super Circuit, Koopa Cape from Wii, and Vancouver Velocity from Tour. The Acorn Cup has Rome Avanti from Tour, DK Mountain from Double Dash, Daisy Circuit from Wii, and Piranha Plant Cove from Tour. And finally, the Spiny Cup has Madrid Drive from Tour, Rosalina's Ice World from 7, Bowser Castle 3 from SNES Kart, and Rainbow Road from Wii. Oh god, that's a lot of them. Oh, jeez. Combined with the base game courses, SNES Kart now has 4 tracks, 6 come from 64, Double Dash and DS both have 7, 8 hail from Super Circuit and Mario Kart 7, and Wii stands on top with a whopping 11 of its 16 unique tracks returning, which is kinda nuts. Almost 75% of Mario Kart Wii is in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. That's kinda bonkers. For Mario Kart Tour, there are 17 returning courses, 20 if we count the 3 courses that technically debut in the Booster Course Pass, with Piranha Plant Pipeline being the only Tour original not in 8 Deluxe. Overall, I think it's fair to say at this point that all the games now have a healthy amount of representation in Mario Kart 8. Even SNES Kart, as though it only has 4 courses, that's still enough to play a 4-race cup with nothing but SNES tracks, which is just plain cool. Graphically, these tracks differ greatly from the base game and OG DLC. Seeing as these courses were pulled from Tour, they mostly inherited Tour's graphical style as well. They aren't direct ports, they did use the extra horsepower of the Switch to give them a bit of polish, but playing them back-to-back does make it a bit noticeable. Not that most would care, I imagine, given that you spend most of these games whizzing past everything, but Lord help you if you want to look at anything too closely. As with previous games, the tracks now have added support for gliding and underwater racing, since Tour also had the two. However, anti-grav wasn't in Tour, so some new tweaks are made to add anti-gravity to some of the courses. Examples of which being Boo Lake, Bowser Castle 3, and Rock Mountain. There's also some courses with half-pipes, such as Waluigi Stadium and DK Summit, whose pipes have been replaced with anti-grav panels to best replicate the feel. Sky High Sundae and Wii Rainbow Road are the most notable in this regard, as the entire track is played in anti-grav. Much more noteworthy, though, is the unique routes. In Tour, many tracks got variants that change exactly how they're played, or numbered iterations with a unique route. For the Booster Course Pass, many tracks have been spliced together with their variants, offering many unique track layouts. The city tracks in particular essentially combine all of their numbered variants, swapping routes almost every lap. There's also Calamari Desert, which uses its second routed version as the basis for its third lap, and Peach Garden, which doubles back on itself for its final lap, much like its reverse variant. Overall, it's a fantastic way to help keep things interesting, make the city tracks stand out from the others, and preserve some of Tour's unique flair. And there we have it, an extensive and exhaustive breakdown of all the retro courses seen in Mario Kart 8 and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. All 71 of them, which honestly does kind of make this something of a celebration of Mario Kart's history. One last joyride up and around all of our favorite locations, reminiscing on all the fun the series has brought us up to this point. All that before Mario Kart World came out and reinvigorated the formula once again. But before that, let's talk about Tour. So honestly, I probably should have talked about Tour before the Booster Course Pass, since it did come out between 8 Deluxe and the Pass, but I also wanted to group all the Mario Kart 8 stuff together, so here's the segment on Mario Kart Tour. So this mobile game changed the formula pretty extensively compared to other games. Every 2 weeks there's an in-game event held, the eponymous Tour. Each tour consists of multiple cups, and each cup has 3 races and a bonus challenge set on one of the tracks. Think like the mission mode from Mario Kart DS. Unlike the usual 8 cups, most tours have about 16 of them, each named after one of the racers. On top of that, cups can have different tracks in them depending on the tour. For example, the Mario Cup seen in the New York Tour had New York Minute, Cheep Cheep Lagoon, and Mario Circuit 1, while the Mario Cup in the Tokyo Tour had Mario Circuit 2, Yoshi Circuit, and Tokyo Blur. As such, going over the tracks cup by cup is rather problematic, inconsistent, and difficult to parse, so for this one, we're just going to go over the tracks that returned in chronological order of their debut games. In total, there are 103 courses in Tour, with 21 of those being new, 10 of which being remixed from SNES cards, which we'll talk about later, and the remaining 72 courses being pulled from every previous game except 8. From Super Mario Kart, there's Mario Circuit 1, Donut Plains 1, Ghost Valley 1, Mario Circuit 2, Choco Island 1, Ghost Valley 2, Donut Plains 2, Mario Circuit 3, Choco Island 2, Vanilla Lake 1, Bowser Castle 3, Donut Plains 3, Koopa Beach 2, Vanilla Lake 2, and Rainbow Road. From Mario Kart 64, there's Luigi Raceway, Koopa Troopa Beach, Calamari Desert, Frappe Snowland, Choco Mountain, Mario Raceway, Royal Raceway, and Yoshi Valley. Notably, there's also the track Calamari Desert 2, which is a rerouted version of the original that is unique to Tour, and combined with the base track for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Despite that, it is classified as an N64 track in-game, so I'm throwing it onto the pile here too. From Mario Kart Super Circuit, there's Peach Circuit, Riverside Park, Bowser's Castle 1, Boo Lake, Bowser's Castle 2, Luigi Circuit, Sky Garden, Cheep Cheep Island, Sunset Wilds, Snowland, Yoshi Desert, Bowser's Castle 3, Lakeside Park, and Bowser Castle 4. From Mario Kart Double Dash, there's Baby Park, Mushroom Bridge, Daisy Cruiser, Waluigi Stadium, Yoshi Circuit, DK Mountain, and Dino Dino Jungle. From Mario Kart DS, there's Luigi's Mansion, Waluigi Pinball, Shroom Ridge, DK Pass, Mario Circuit, Airship Fortress, and Peach Gardens. From Mario Kart Wii, there's Mushroom Gorge, Coconut Mall, DK Summit, Daisy Circuit, Koopa Cape, Maple Treeway, Dry Ruins, Moonview Highway, and Rainbow Road. Finally, from Mario Kart 7, there's Toad Circuit, Daisy Hills, Cheep Cheep Lagoon, Shy Guy Bazaar, Mario Circuit, Rock Mountain, Piranha Plant Slide, Wario Shipyard, Neo Bowser City, Rosalina's Ice World, Bowser's Castle, and Rainbow Road. In total, that is 15 courses from SNES Kart, 8 from 64, 14 from Super Circuit, 7 each from Double Dash and DS, 9 from Wii, and 12 from Mario Kart 7. Bucking the usual trend, SNES and GBA got preferential treatment this time, with almost all of their courses coming back. I can only imagine this is due to them being very easy to recreate due to their simple designs, which is especially important given that it needs to run smoothly on mobile devices. The weaker specs and touchscreen control likely means recreating a 3D track is much more complicated. Not impossible, given the ones that did return, but, not as easy, of course. As for 7, I imagine it's due to Tour likely reusing a lot of 7's graphical assets and style, thus it would have been easy to just sort of drag and drop them in. In fact, all of the retro courses seen in 7 also return in Tour, sporting the modified looks based on their takes in Tour. Speaking of graphics, Tour's tracks are roughly in the field of Mario Kart 7 as a whole. The ones returning from 7 look about identical to how they did before, with some slight downgrades or alterations likely to work on lower-end devices. This also means that the SNES, 64, GCN, and DS courses return with little change beyond graphical polish. The Wii tracks, again, have been slightly downgraded, but the GBA courses saw a lot of love. Many of them have completely redone backgrounds and environments, making them much more three-dimensional than they were before. Comparing the maps, they've also seen a few tweaks and adjustments to their course design, retaining their same general routes, but with some parts shortened or chopped out entirely or remixed in other ways. Now, like the last two games, these tracks have been outfitted with glider ramps and underwater sections. However, they also have another addition wholly unique to Tour, the variants. Almost every track in the game has 4 variants: the normal one, the R track, the T track, and the RT track. R tracks, short for reverse, have you drive the course in reverse, with modifications made to ensure that such a thing is possible given the design of some of these. The T tracks, short for trick, are versions of the courses with trick ramps cluttering every corner of the course, so you can bounce and boost like a madman no matter how flat the course may be. The RT tracks are then what you'd expect, a reverse trick track. Combine the previous two conditions and there you are. In fact, you know that one super infamous Bowser Castle image with all the trick ramps? That's an image of GBA Bowser Castle 3's RT variant. Almost all the retro courses received all 3 variants, with 2 exceptions. GBA Bowser's Castle 4 never got a T or RT version, and Rock Mountain never got an RT iteration. The other thing wholly unique to Tour are the remixed courses. These are 10 tracks that kind of straddle the line between Nitro and Retro. They are courses with fully original layouts, but are built using the assets from the SNES courses. Remix Mario Circuit 1 is an all-new track, which is based on the SNES Mario circuits. As such, they aren't really retro courses, but still thought they were important to mention, given their usage of retro courses as a base. And that's basically everything there is to say about Mario Kart Tour. Surprisingly, a lot for a mobile game, I must say. Thankfully, Tour has, and probably will always have, the largest number of courses, so any future Mario Kart is almost certainly to have less. But before we talk about that future, let's go over some stats. As of 8 Deluxe's Booster Course Pass, there are 166 unique racetracks we've seen across the series. Of those, 103 courses have returned in main console Retro GPs, and 63 have not. This is only including the Retro GPs seen in the mainline console Mario Karts, and excluding the Tours from Tour and the Extra Cups from Super Circuit. If we include the Tours, the number rises to 119 courses that returned, and 47 that have not. And if we add the Extra Cups, then in total there are 124 courses that have made any kind of return appearance in a major Mario Kart installment, and 42 which have not. The ones that have not returned are Wario Stadium from 64, Broken Pier and Rainbow Road from Super Circuit, Mushroom City, Wario Coliseum, Bowser's Castle and Rainbow Road from Double Dash, Figure 8 Circuit, Bowser Castle and Rainbow Road from DS, Luigi Circuit, Toad's Factory, Mario Circuit and Bowser's Castle from Wii, Woohoo Loop and Maka Woohoo from 7, Piranha Plant Pipeline from Tour, and finally all 25 new courses from Mario Kart 8. SNES Kart is the only game at this time where all the courses have returned, thanks entirely due to it being the extra courses of Super Circuit. It is particularly strange that no courses from Mario Kart 8 have returned yet, though it's likely because only Tour has come out since 8, but it is so strange that not a single 8 course appeared in Mario Kart Tour. I can only assume removing the anti-grav was seen as, improbable, which is fair considering how a lot of these tracks are virtually impossible to play without it, though it's even more odd when you consider what comes next.
Let's go!
Okay, so, you're probably wondering why I opted to list the previous quote-unquote final stats before factoring in Mario Kart World. When you see my minions, it's actually quite simple. The game is not out yet, and while yes, we may have a decent idea on all the main content this game has, we will never truly know for sure until the game actually comes out. As such, I wanted to keep them off the books, so to speak, until the game comes out and we receive all of the tangible, quantifiable information that we can get. Still, we can at least look at what's in there and, I don't know, maybe speculate a bit. We'll see. So far, we've seen evidence of 30 unique tracks in this game, with 7 of the 8 regular cups available to play through. The Special Cup is the only one that's noticeably absent, though this might be due to Rainbow Road being unlocked upon being the other Special Cups. Would make sense, it is the final track of the Special Cup traditionally. These cups are especially noticeable as the usual organization has been completely thrown out the window this time. The Flower Cup is all retro courses, the Leaf Cup is all new courses, and several others feature a mix of new and old. Which is fair, they've been following the same formula for 4 games now. I imagine they would really need to mix it up, let's be real. For the tracks, the Mushroom and Leaf Cups both feature nothing but new courses. The Flower Cup has Desert Hills from DS, Shy Guy Bazaar from 7, Wario Stadium from 64, and Airship Fortress from DS. The Star Cup has DK Pass from DS, Sky High Sundae from Tour, and Wario Shipyard from 7. The Shell Cup has Koopa Beach from SNES Kart, and the Banana Cup has Peach Beach and Dino Dino Jungle from Double Dash. The Lightning Cup has Moo Moo Meadows and Toad's Factory from Wii and Choco Mountain from 64. And finally, the assumed Special Cup has Mario Circuit from SNES Kart. Or at least that's what the Mario Wiki says. Yeah, no, I trust them. Graphically, this game continues what we saw in 8, where the tracks are given much bigger makeovers than just extra graphical horsepower. In fact, a lot of these courses bear even less resemblance to their original incarnations than they did in 8. Dino Dino Jungle, I think, is the most clear and obvious example in this, with all of its jungle ruins having been extracted and replaced with a Jurassic Park-style research center. There's also been some changes to track layouts. Given the game's focus on open world with interconnected race courses, each course has been given multiple extra routes and paths connecting them to other nearby courses. There's also the SNES courses, which you'll notice I did not list their numbers. Well, this time around, not only do multiple SNES tracks return, but they've also been spliced together to form a single course. Mario Circuit has Mario Circuit 1, 2, and 3 all jammed together, while Koopa Beach has both 1 and 2 combined. Not only that, there's also several other SNES courses that appear around the world, acting as parts of the roads connecting the tracks together. This includes all 3 Ghost Valleys appearing around Boo's Cinema, and Vanilla Lake 1 appearing on the road linking Sky High Sundae to Wario Shipyard. It is currently unknown if these are merely set dressing or actable selectable courses, but regardless, it's kind of a genius way to include more classic courses while also spicing up the intermissions. Like, kudos to you, game designers, that's a really good design-o-mat right there. One thing to note is the game representation. There's 3 tracks from DS, 2 from SNES Kart, 64, Double Dash, Wii, and 7, and Sky High Sundae, which, depending on how you count it, is the sole course from either 8 Deluxe or Tour. Currently, we have not seen any courses return from Super Circuit or base Mario Kart 8, marking the first home console Mario Kart not to feature courses returning from all previous games. It is particularly odd that no 8 courses returned, though again they probably need even greater reworking in order to extract the anti-grab. Though I'm sure it would have been possible to get something from 8 in here, even with just one of the basic bitch choices like Thwomp Ruins or Toad Harbor. Like, Toad Harbor barely uses anti-gravity. The only anti-gravity there is to run on walls, and you can drive on the walls in this game, so what the hell, man? You couldn't have even bothered? Though, to be completely fair, it might also just be because 8 has been the main Mario Kart for 10 years now, and everybody's just kind of sick of looking at it right now. For Super Circuit, I think it's alright to sit this one out since it already had so many courses in Tour and the Booster Course Pass. That said, we saw SNES and 64's Rainbow Road's return, so logic dictates the GBA one will be next in line for remaking, so, that'd be kinda sweet. Especially if they actually go full throttle and bring back the Paper Mario reference, they'll never do that, but that'd be sick as all hell. And that's basically all I can say about World. Really, we've seen what does look to be all the tracks and most of the cups, so in terms of returning tracks, there's probably not much to really speculate on. I mean, maybe if you 100% the game, you'll unlock Broken Pier as a bonus track, but I can't say for sure. And I enjoy facts. That being said, I do find it much more interesting to see how the traditional pattern has been cast away. The regular patterns and attempted order has been completely discarded for a more free-form kind of approach to the retro tracks. And honestly, I can kind of get behind that. Because like, why should the retro tracks all be quarantined to their own GP? Why should they all look one-to-one identical with their original iterations? Why can't the devs try to do something new and fresh and interesting with them? Honestly, I'm totally on board with them doing something new, and I can't wait to get my hands on it and see it all for myself firsthand. And also, you can play as a swoop. So this is officially, legally, the best Mario game ever made. And there you have it, the complete history and evolution of the Retro Grand Prix and retro courses in general in Mario Kart. There wasn't really a big point to all of this, it's just something I wanted to talk about, and boy, howdy did we frickin' talk about it! One can only wonder what the future of the classic courses is, and whether Luigi Circuit Wii will one day get its time in the spotlight. But I'm excited to see what the future holds. $80 price tags be damned. So thank you all for watching, and keep on karting.